Ew, look at that. Look at the mouth. Like, I don't even need to see its eyes. This makes me uncomfortable. Ah.
At the bottom of the midnight zone is Neocyema earthasma.
Neo what? If I would have to guess, I feel like this could be the case of an animal that is going through evolution. 6 feet of this? It looks like an earthworm with a shrimp head, does it not?
Dive 2 miles below sea level,
Ew.
and the cool eels that you're used to see gliding through the water or using these sick electric abilities are now just straight horror shows.
I hate eels. It's not just the deep sea ones, but even those that you find in shallow waters. I don't like them. I don't like their eyes. I don't like their teeth. I especially don't like their jaws. Like, simply every single one of them have this non-friendly looking jaw. Like, look at the guy on screen right now.
If you saw our squids video, you already know that the deep sea can have some nasty effects on marine life. But how does this affect eels? First, we have to look at the eels not in the deep, like this one.
Ew, look at that, it's already making me uncomfortable. Ew, yeah, I don't like eels.
This is the snowflake eel. It's basically the opposite of creepy. They're found in the epipelagic zone, and the fact they don't live in deep water is the exact reason why they don't look heinously terrifying. They use their color to blend in with rocks and coral and sand, so prey won't see them coming when they hunt. Also, I feel obliged to mention this eel since everyone's going to ask, but the electric eel isn't actually an eel. They're knife fish that just look like eels.
Wait, what?
So some misinformed scientist hundreds of years ago called them eels, and the name stuck. These guys can be dangerous, but again, not necessarily creepy. But once you head deeper and enter the twilight zone, you'll actually start to see the first eel that's been morphed by this effect. This is where you'll find the conger eel, a much larger, darker, and aggressive version of shallow water eels. Its body has lost all colourful pigment, and because they're in the twilight zone, its eyes have grown much bigger to capture any small amount of light left. They're oddly muscular too. Snowflake eels, for comparison, weigh about 1 to 2 pounds, whereas adult conger eels can reach up to 130. Yeah.
Oh, it's much denser then. Look at him. I feel like part of what makes eels so creepy and disgusting to me is just how soft they look. So this one right here is actually fine to me. And also, this is another thing that you notice. It's a common thing where there is no consistency. When it comes to deep sea adaptation, it felt like there is multiple ways to solve the same problem, where you see eels or squids developing much larger eyes to catch every single possible light source, right? But you also have other species who completely give up on their sights and rely only on their senses, their hearing, their smells, and even electric signals, sonar, whatever. My point is that they solve the same problem, but there are a lot of different ways that these creatures evolved to solve them, right? And so this is the question that I want to ask the most. What influenced them? What pushes them into these type of evolution? Is evolution influenced or random or both?
Conger eels are basically the real-life version of sea serpents, but they actually aren't usually aggressive towards divers, unless provoked. Conger eels evolved for the twilight zone, where there's just enough light left for shadows, but not enough for color. That's why they've lost all pigment and turned pitch black to blend into the dim water. So what happens to eels' eyes in a place with zero light? Well, this is what happens in the midnight zone. The eels here start to just not even look like eels, and more like deformed worms. This is the Sawtooth Eel.
Ew, look at that. 6 feet of this? It looks like an earthworm. It looks like a earthworm with a shrimp head. Does it not? Ew. When it comes to deep sea fishes and squids, they usually still kind of resembles their own species in some way, but not eels. Like, even here, if I saw this, I would consider it a weird fish, maybe deep sea fish, or maybe just a huge worm. If you're looking at this image, you would never think of an eel.
Its jaw is lined with long, needle-like teeth that stick out even when its mouth is closed. Its body is pitch black and paper thin, and because food is so rare this deep, it will eat just about anything, including other eels. Snipe eels look like if you took the Sawtooth eel and somehow warped its face even more. Their mouths aren't even able to close all the way because of the shape, and its body has been stretched immensely thin. It's creepy and doesn't even really look like an eel.
It doesn't.
But unlikely to attack you since they aren't very large. So why?
They're tiny.
Their jaws are designed to snatch prey. They're focused on shrimp or other small crustaceans and hook food with backwards-facing teeth. At the bottom of the midnight zone is Neosaima earthasima.
Neo what?
It was first discovered in 2018, which for reference is super recent in marine biology, and only a few specimens have ever been found. The most strange part about it is that this eel just looks unfinished. You can literally see its organs through its skin, and it doesn't even have visible eyes. Whatever eyes are left buried under its skin are completely vestigial, meaning that they don't even work anymore, and are literally just relics of evolution from ancestor eels that once could see. You might be wondering how this thing even survives, since it's a bright orange flag that can't see anything. And honestly, we don't fully know because of how rare they are.
If I would have to guess, I feel like this could be the case of an animal that is going through evolution, maybe in the process of it. And this is just one of the species that just so happened to, but also since they're rare, it's not really, we can't really determine anything really. Because again, this is marine biology, well, just biology in general, right? We are looking for logic, reasons, and stuff that we cannot make sense of, right? So there is always a possibility where we make the wrong conclusion too early on, trying to make sense of it, and especially a creature this rare. But yeah, that would be my guess.
Neosaima earthasima has likely evolved to rely on touch and vibration, using specialized nerves along its body to sense movement and pressure changes in the water. Beneath the midnight zone is the abyssopelagic zone, which is the final zone where eels reach their absolute limits. And of all the eels that live in the deep, none are more recognizable or more unsettling than the Gulper Eel. At first glance, it honestly doesn't even look real.
Ew, look at that mouth, right this frame. Like, I don't even need to see its eyes. This frame makes me uncomfortable. I knew it was gonna trigger me, but man, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm very uncomfortable right now.
Its mouth is so massive that when it opens, it looks like its entire head is about to turn inside out. The jaws can balloon to a size several times larger than the eel's own body, forming a huge, gaping pouch that can swallow prey almost as big as itself. Unlike most deep-sea predators, the Gulper eel doesn't chase anything. Instead, it drifts through the darkness and waits, luring smaller fish and crustaceans close with a bioluminescent tip at the end of its long, whip-like tail. When it's not feeding, the mouth folds back into a small, almost delicate head. Its body is paper-thin and jet black. Its eyes are tiny, and the tail glows like a distant light in an endless void.
This felt like a more completed evolution. Like, from my view, this is what you see in the deep ocean, right? He's thin, he has this bioluminescent tail to lure in prey, and his feeding mechanism works like a trap. Also, its body, it's not as masculine. It's not made for long distance, powerful swimming, sprinting, and all that stuff. It has completely adapted to the deep sea environment. And when you put these two creatures side by side, you'll be able to see where my uneducated guess comes from.
So if it gets so flat, where does it keep its brain? Well, that's the creepy part. It barely has one. The Gulper eel's brain is tiny, buried deep behind its enormous jaws, taking up almost no space at all. Most of its head is just flexible skin, muscle, and empty cavity so that the mouth can balloon outward. Its actual brain is about the size of a pea, tucked just above the throat. But are they actually dangerous to us in real life? Well, fully realistically speaking, definitely not, because firstly, you'll never even meet one naturally. They live 2,000 to 3,000 meters below the surface and almost never come up. Second, they're not aggressive. They don't bite or hunt like sharks. They wait and gulp. Their jaws are big, but not strong. They aren't meant to tear things apart.
They look small as well. And also, now that I'm thinking about it, what do their eyes do in that depth? Is it something that is not completely de-evolved or like devolved? Is that a word? So is that something that is left untouched during the evolution process? Maybe like human tailbones, I think?
You're not on the menu unless you're under a foot tall. That said, if one ever did get curious and tried to swallow something human-sized, you wouldn't get bitten. You'd just get vacuum sealed. But if you go even deeper than the Gulper eel, there lives a very close relative to gulpers. This is the deep sea swallower, or Saphopharynx amylaceus, and it's essentially an even more disturbing version of the Gulper eel. Its entire body is basically just a mouth and a stomach. The jaw can open wider than the eel's own body, and its stomach can stretch so much that it can swallow prey larger than itself. When it does swallow something huge, its body inflates like a grotesque balloon.
Yeah, you know what eels always reminds me? The snakes. Because you see how even the shallow water eels, you see how they move, right? And the pigments on their skin, it looks like a snake in the water. And at least to me, they look very similar. And so I'm wondering, do they share the same ancestry at some point? But yeah, this is bizarre.
The deep sea swallower has a larger focus on its stomach that can grow and make the eel just look absolutely freaky. But again, these are deep sea eels, so we really just don't know too much about them. I honestly wish I had more footage to show you guys of these eels swallowing something like a giant fish whole, but they're simply so mysterious that what's available is just so limited.
And also now that I think about it, I think Gulper Eel makes sense, right? Because its main food source are planktons, crustaceans, small animals that it lures in with the bioluminescent tail. But when you think about deep sea swallower, where do you even find a prey that big deep in the ocean? That's another mystery here, right? And also, how do they hunt? That's interesting to think about.
While those two Gulper eels live in the upper abyssal zone, there's one eel that lives deeper, at the bottom of the abyssal zone, and the only eel that could potentially leak into the hadal zone is the one-jaw eel. It's suspected that this eel eats by using its singular lower jaw like a hook to impale prey that drifts by, and gulps it down in one swallow, because it can't really chew properly. Their eyes have been reduced to essentially specks that are completely non-functional, and they don't even have any functional fins. The crazy part is, even though we've technically caught some of these eels before, we still barely know what they actually look like alive. That's because you can't just drag a deep sea animal to the surface and expect it to stay in one piece.
Ew. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I like the deep sea eels better. Like, to be honest, I was expecting to hate the deep sea eels as well, but so far it seems like the deep sea eels are actually much friendlier looking. When you look at their jaw, their structure, their body, they don't look like something that'll hurt you, even if it wants to. But look at this guy. This guy looks mean. Look at that hidden and tucked away body of that creature. God damn.
Instead of having strong bones or protective shells, most deep sea eels have gelatinous bodies, soft tissue, and gas-filled cavities to withstand that pressure. It works down there, but the second they're pulled up, all that pressure disappears, and the internal balance is destroyed. Organs rupture, eyes bulge or collapse, assuming they even had any eyes. Stomachs balloon outwards, and most specimens literally explode on the way up because the gases inside expand so rapidly. In fact, half the time researchers catch these things in deep trawls. It's just a leaking sack of black goo with teeth. And even when a body makes its way to the surface in one piece, it's usually so warped or decomposed by decompression that it's impossible to tell what it looked like when it was alive.
I don't know how we're gonna do that with some other species that are affected by deep sea gigantism, but when it comes to these smaller ones, I feel like it is possible that we could potentially create a container with, artificial pressure that keeps its body intact or the creature itself alive, right? But I guess the problem comes down to, where do you even find these things? I guess that's the thing. I feel like there's gotta be an angle that we push through, right? But uneducated assumptions again.
So when we say we don't know much about deep sea eels, it's meant literally. Our only options are either to catch something that gets destroyed on the way up, or catch seconds of footage from deep sea ROVs before it swims away and vanishes forever. So why can't eels go any deeper than this into the deeper Haddle zone? At a certain point, the pressure in the water just becomes too much. Not even for their bodies, but for how they're built. Eels rely on flexible skeletons and soft tissue to twist, swim and hunt. But down past 8,000 or 9,000 meters, that flexibility starts working against them. The extreme pressure compresses every air pocket.
Oh, it's probably just gonna bend them, right?
This is likely why the one-jaw eel looks the way it does. It's not built to thrive, it's built to barely exist. At those depths, evolution isn't about improvement anymore. It's about survival in its most stripped down form. The one-jaw eel has essentially become a minimalist version of life. Every unnecessary feature has been erased by pressure and darkness. What exists in the lower part of the Haddle zone are creatures that barely swim, more just float.
I think that's the most interesting part about deep sea creatures. When it comes to extreme environments, the deep sea is probably the most extreme of them all. There's no light, barely any prey, immense amount of pressure that pretty much stops you from moving. And so creatures here have to adapt to the bare minimum of any life form. And in my opinion, that sounds like a very beneficial thing to study, don't you think? But yeah, that has been a very interesting video. I was surprised by how much less intimidating they are compared to, normal shallow water eels, actually. They look weird, but it felt like a necessary trait instead of threatening. But yeah, it was super interesting, and I still believe that it will be beneficial to us to understand more about these creatures and explore more of the deep sea. But as always, the link to the original video would be down in the description. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.